to Voices of Introspection, a podcast brought to you by Nexus Diaries, where we explore the creative workings of the human mind that lead us to learn the depths of self discovery. I'm your host, Harini Balachandar. Today, we are honored to have Jason Tifford with us. Jason is the founder of a mindful company which provides human centered bereavement support for employees and organizations. He is also the co founder of The Lost Tribe, a nonprofit community dedicated to supporting individuals through loss and a certified end of life doula. Jason's journey is one of transformation, from aspiring hedge fund manager to compassionate advocate for those experiencing grief. His story reminds us that our most profound challenges can become our greatest source of purpose. Let's dive into our conversation. Hey Jason, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. I'd like to jump right in with an icebreaker. What's something you have learned about yourself recently that surprised you?
Mm. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me here. And to answer your question, something that has surprised me about myself is how impatient I can be. And yeah, it's yeah, definitely I would say how impatient I can be. That has surprised me. I feel that in some areas of my life I can be very patient. For instance, if I'm sitting down and having like a conversation with somebody, but I find that there's other instances, uh whether it be, I would say, if I'm trying to build something, if I know how I want something to be and I want it to be done, and things get in the way of that, I find that I can be very impatient. Um, so, yeah, I would say.
That's fascinating. I recently interviewed another entrepreneur who expressed something very similar. She mentioned her impatience stems from a need to be productive. She can be patient with everything else, but when it comes to her own work, she needs to complete it quickly and move on. It seems this is a common trait among high performers who constantly push things forward. Thanks for sharing that insight. Now, I'd like to explore your childhood and background. You have embarked on a mission to help people who are navigating grief or preparing for loss. Your organization specifically helps people find community and support through these challenging processes. Before we discuss your current work, I'm curious about your own experience with loss. How was your relationship with your father growing up, and how did that relationship impact how you processed grief when he passed?
Sure. Yeah. 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 So let's see. When my dad got diagnosed with terminal esophageal cancer, I was a junior in college, and at the time, my biggest dream in life was to become a hedge fund manager. Everything in my life was just about, yeah, was about me, and how can I how can I do things to make myself feel good about, yeah, to make myself feel good about myself. And no part of it was about really serving other people. It was all about, yeah, me, me, me. I was also the president of my fraternity at the time. And yeah, that's pretty much who I was. I wasn't really somebody who was willing to have a conversation about their emotions. I wasn't somebody who was really emotionally vulnerable with people. Um, and at the time when my dad got diagnosed with terminal esophageal cancer, my first reaction was just like, oh my god, like what am I gonna do? Like my dad is gonna die, and basically like time is running out. What do I do? And I remember going back to our my hotel room and just like crying for like 20 minutes straight, 25 minutes straight, and just crying, 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 not really knowing what to do with this. And I came across a video. I remember it was a Jordan Peterson video. And I came across this video because I was like, okay, how does somebody get through loss? And I came across this video, and it basically said, well, to be in the position that somebody's in of experiencing loss is hell. But something you can do is to find an aim. And for me at that time, the aim and what he said in the video is like to be the strongest person at your dad's funeral. And at that time, I was like, wow, this is really inspiring, because it's also like giving me hope, and it's giving me aim, and it's giving me a sense of purpose in this time. Um, and from there, I had it was a gradual process, I would say, of starting to share more about how I felt, because like I had a really hard time being vulnerable with people, and asking for help and sharing what was going on in my life, and and it was also the most isolating that I'd felt in my entire life too, because in these moments of being back at college while my dad was home at sick, I would have these moments where I I uh, I felt like I needed somebody to share with, but I didn't have anybody that I could talk to. I felt that way, at least. And I was surrounded by all these people who I would spend time with, yet I wasn't really vulnerable or open with them. And it just led to just such a feeling of like isolation and honestly hell. It was awful. And the only thing that really kept me through that was that aim of trying to be the strongest person at my dad's funeral. So that was really who I was at the time of him getting sick. And yeah, I'm happy to go into it into it more if you have with whatever other questions you have about it. But yeah.
Hmm. It sounds like your father had a significant influence on your life. What specifically did you admire about him as a child? I lost my father about 11 years ago, and my fondest memories are of us sharing silly dad jokes, a connection none of my siblings had with him. As the middle child and something of a rebel, I challenged him more than my sister or brother did. What was your relationship dynamic like with your dad?
Well, I would say the thing that I looked up to him the most about was I would say his work ethic, for sure. His work ethic, his discipline, and then also I would say his love for music, his love and passion for music. Um, and I would say our relationship was like, prior to that point, he was definitely more of a like disciplinary figure in my life than somebody who I would really confide in my emotions, or somebody that I would expect to like be there and depend on emotionally. But honestly, that experience of him getting sick was such a blessing in the way where it allowed us to really grow in our relationship together. And for what felt like the first time in my life, it felt like I could actually like depend on him to be there for me emotionally. And there were moments where he was the one who was sick and dying, yet I was the one who was coming to him and expressing to him my worries and concerns, and yet he was the person who was there and holding space for me. Um, but yeah, so yeah, that's more so what our relationship was like, I would say.
It is powerful how those facing serious illness often show this remarkable strength for their loved ones, right? Despite their own suffering, they become emotional anchors for those around them. So, looking back to when you first learned about your father's diagnosis, is there anything you would have done differently?
Well, that's an interesting question that you ask, um, because I don't feel that I would do anything differently. Um, yeah, I really try. I don't want this to be like a scapegoat answer, but I really try to live my life in a way where I'm not focusing on what's been done and what's out of my control. There's definitely been things that have been harder uh, to to come to terms with, I would say. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything, I would say.
Mhm. You just mentioned your aim was to be the strongest person at your father's funeral. How did this impact your family dynamic? Did your mother and sister lean on you for strength, or did you simply offer it regardless of whether they sought it? What was that shared experience of loss like?
Yeah. Um, I definitely tried my best to, like, be that person that was there, so I felt like that aim gave me it gave me a sense of yeah, a sense of purpose in going into those interactions and saying, "Hey, I need to hold it together for them," you know? And so I certainly tried, but at the same time, I was a kid. I mean, I still am a kid, but I was a kid, and it's also, like, such an unreal expectation to think that you need to hold it together for everybody else. And I think it's you can be a strong person and also be vulnerable and have moments when you break down. And uh and also I that's like another instance in where I've found that my patience was also tested, because there would be times where if where I maybe could have been there for somebody else better, but I was just so caught up in everything that was going on in my own life that I wasn't really able to be fully present and patient with them and loving. Um, so yeah, to bring it back full circle to your first question.
I hear you balancing multiple emotional demands, processing your own grief while creating space for others, all while recognizing that's an unrealistic expectation for anyone, especially a young person. You needed to heal yourself before you could effectively support others in this journey.
Yeah, I think we can only really show up for other people and be loving towards one another as much as we're accepting and loving of ourselves. And yeah, because otherwise it's like how can you show up and be loving for somebody else if you have all these other things going on in your mind that are telling you that you're unworthy to be there for somebody, or um yeah.
Mm. Okay. How did these experiences transform you over time? You described the younger Jason as self involved, which is completely natural part of a youth. When was that pivotal moment when you shifted from focusing on yourself to serving others? When did that transformation happen and how did it reshape your life?
Honestly, it wasn't until maybe a year after he had passed. So he was diagnosed in March of 2021, passed at the end of 2021, and then I graduated school in May of 2022, um, and ended up moving down to Austin, took a job at a event production company. And it was a fun job. Like I was making money and had good benefits. I didn't really need to work that hard. Like dream job on paper, right? And I worked there for about 6 months, and then my contract was up, and I was just like looking for something that was going to I was looking for something that had more meaning. And it was at that point where I started volunteering, visiting hospice patients. First, yeah, just as a volunteer, sitting with them and just kind of talking, similar to how we're talking right now, just sitting with them, getting to know their story. So I would say if I'm, yeah, it was about, what was that? About a year after he passed. So it took some, I knew that once he passed, I was like, I needed to find work that was more meaningful. Like at that time, I was set up to like take a consulting job out of school. And I knew that that wasn't what I wanted. I was like, I'm gonna have to work 70 hours a week. Like my dad just died. I don't want to just go and slave my life away. And I envisioned what that looked like, and it was just not what I wanted. And um And so I was like, okay, let's move to Austin. At the time, I just started my podcast where I was developing an interest in spirituality, and I started to have different guests on and to understand what how they navigated their life experiences and how, yeah, just trying to learn. Um, and for me, that was really fulfilling, and it was like a form of work that was fueling me, but at the same time, like it wasn't paying anything. So it got to a point where I was like, all right, I need to get a job, and that's when I started working at the production company. And yeah, so I'd say, yeah, a year.
Okay. It sounds like grief put life into perspective for you. You realize that pushing or you realize that pursuing a demanding career like being a hedge fund manager might not provide the fulfilling life you wanted, especially with the awareness that time is finite.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that volunteering became your pathway forward. Volunteering exposes you to populations where empathy is in high demand. Can you share your experience from those early days as a volunteer? What was it like the first time you stepped into that role?
I like how you put it too, because it was like I think that's what it was. Like I thought I had something to give. And I very quickly, it was very humbling because there were, like, straight off the bat, I went to visit a few people, and my posture of going into these first few visits were, okay, this person, like, needs my help. This I had all these assumptions in my head about what the person was like and how I should be, and I was humbled very quickly because that, like, yet I was coming in and wanting to serve, and there were people that were like, get out of here, like, I don't even want you here. Like, there are people that were, like, on their deathbed and alone, and there were times where my presence wasn't wanted, and which I respected because it's like they're the dying person, you know? So I would say it was very humbling, and it taught me that I am only as useful in this position as my ability to really be present with somebody and to genuinely want to understand them. And because, like, if I'm going in and I'm like just trying to help or I'm trying to do this, like it's good to want to help and do those things, but that identity can very much get in the way of seeing somebody for the person that they are, you know? And it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like you go into it and it's like, hey, I'm going to say all these things, I'm going to comfort them, but it's like they just want somebody to be there and be with them and see them.
So it wasn't about speaking or doing, but simply being present and attuned to what they actually needed rather than what you assumed they wanted. Were you primarily interacting with terminally ill patients or did you also work with their families?
It was yeah, so it was hospice patients who I was visiting, and most of my visits were sitting with one-on-one with the hospice patient. Sometimes I was hanging out with their family. Um, Sometimes I'd have dinner with the they would like invite me over for dinner. But yeah, I was just volunteering, mostly just sitting one-on-one with the patient and talking. Um, and sometimes playing guitar if they wanted to. Um,
Oh.
and yeah,
I appreciate how you describe that. The need to serve can actually interfere with truly understanding a person. When you are focused on an agenda of helping, you might miss what they genuinely need. Are you still volunteering today? If so, how has your approach evolved from those early experiences?
I still volunteer. Yeah. Um, I would say now I'm much more, or I like to think I am. I like to think that I'm going into these visits without any expectation, and I'm really just trying to just to be there and even see if they even want me there, you know? um, and understanding like that this is like it's an ongoing relationship, you know, and I'm coming to visit them, and I got to make sure, hey, is it okay if I come back again? Is this something you even want? Um, So yeah, just trying to be mindful of their wants, their needs. And also like I like what you said too about helping, because it's like, in our society where we think help and we think do, but loving is not always doing, and most of the time, especially in this situation, it's just sitting and being with somebody.
That reminds me of something one of my mentors shared about communication with her husband. When she speaks to him, he asks whether she wants one of three things: to be helped, to be heard, or to be hurt, like to be challenged. Most people jump straight to helping and skip the crucial hearing phase because they assume they already understand.
I can definitely relate to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to discuss how you're serving today. You have several initiatives underway. Tell me about them. Which one came first, and how has that journey changed your life?
Yeah. Yeah. So after pretty much a year of just volunteering, I needed to find a way to make a living, and rightfully so. If it was up to me, I would have just kept doing that. But my family is like, all right, it's time to get to work. Also, I also just planning for a future and wanting a family. I was like, okay, I need to find a way to make a living. And so that's where the idea of a mindful company first started. Um, doesn't sound that inspiring when I say it like that. But I mean, I started as doing like workshops and coaching B2B, and taking this approach of really just active listening and doing this and bringing that to the business space, and uh, learned that there's not a real need for this. It's super saturated. A bunch of different people are doing this. And so the entrepreneur side of me was like, okay, there's got to be a bigger problem here. And the more I looked into it, the more I saw the issue of the employees who needed to be supported, who were experiencing a loss. And I that's where a mindful company made its most recent pivot. And so we're running a pilot right now with a big tech company. Um, and so yeah, so that's my business. We support employees who are experiencing loss, and it's usually built on as a company benefit, so employees don't have to pay for anything, and it would include um, helping employees with the logistical complexities that come up with loss, as well as helping them with advanced care planning, and also getting them access to end of life doulas. And all of this would be free because the company would be paying for it. Um, but the you asked about how I'm serving. This led me to wanting to build a lost tribe, which is a not-for-profit community built around just supporting people through loss. And for me, a big part of wanting to build this was at the time when I lost my dad. Like I wanted to feel like I could be open and vulnerable with people and have people that understood my story without having to feel like a burden. And I felt like every time I try to share this with my friends, I would be like such a downer, because like, oh, like people get it if you're like your loved one's dying, but it's like if you're the guy who's always talking about your grief, it's a lot. And so yeah, me and another end of life doula created this community as a way for people just to get together and to create community around this, and to yeah, to not profit off of this. Like there's so many businesses out there that are exploiting this, and we really wanted to create something that was free for people, and putting the community first, the community, the connection, the the getting to know one another, and being able to share each other's stories. So yeah, so that's one way that I'm serving right now, and yeah, it's really exciting me right now doing this sort of thing.
What you have created is genuinely inspiring, Jason. You have connected your personal experiences with a practical way to make a living while fulfilling your deeper purposes. It's rare to find that balance between passion and livelihood, right? Both your initiatives clearly demonstrate service with purpose. Never downplay that achievement. It's truly inspirational, Jason. And that concludes the first part of our conversation with Jason Tifford. His journey from personal grief to purposeful service reminds us that most painful experiences can become the foundation for profound meaning and connection. In part 2, we'll explore Jason's community building efforts with the Lost Tribe and dive deeper into the lessons he's learned about supporting others through grief. If you have found value in today's conversation, please subscribe to Voices of Introspection and share this episode with someone who might benefit from Jason's insights. Signing off, this is Harini Balachandar for Nexus Diaries.